I have a lot of information to give you on the Dagger line, and this is going to be basically a buyer's guide to the daggers and everything you'll want to know about them, including the improvements that they've just recently did to the new daggers, and the good, the bad, the ugly, and where we're at after a year's use of the first dagger that I got. I currently have 4 daggers. I'm going to be having another on the way, but I have a lot of rounds through these guns, and I can give you a ton of information because I've shot all 4 of these guns quite a bit, and I've got a ton of pros, cons, and updates to give you guys in this video. So be patient with me. It might be a little bit longer, but I've got a lot of information to put into one video. First, I'd like to go over the micro dagger. So let's do a first 30-second breakdown on this. This is for the first 30 seconds, give or take. I give you guys my exact thoughts on this product before we get into the full review. That way you can just stop watching because now you know exactly what I think about this, or you continue watching because you can find out exactly why I say these things in full detail, and it does help out with the YouTube algorithm, and I appreciate that. This is a phenomenal gun at a phenomenal price. Let's just get that right out of the way. Malfunction-wise, I've only had 2 through this gun and 0 through this gun. I've had a couple weird kinks on this one where it feels a little more stiff. You can hear it's a little more stiff than this one. This one's a lot smoother, but malfunction-wise, only 2, and I think one of those was ammo related, not necessarily a problem with the gun. These guns come with a lot of different options and configurations. As you can tell, these are very similar, but also different, so you can change it up depending on your personal preference. They are optics cut with locking lugs. The sights are decent, better than the worst, but definitely not the best. The grip itself is very good, very comfortable in my hand. The trigger is improved and much better, but still don't love the hinge trigger and would like to see them go away with that. The magazine capacity is at 15, which is phenomenal. Only comes with 1 magazine, but at the price, can you really complain at that? And for the price, these are a really good value, hence why I've bought so many. Now let's get into my relationship with Palmetto State Armory. I did purchase all 4 of these handguns with my own money. They have sent me guns in the past, but these ones were purchased myself. Now let's go over the channel sponsors, Brownells, Howitzer, and Tecto. Cannot thank these companies enough. They allow me to do what I do and give you guys free content. Check out Brownells, and you guys can go to my website. There's a link in the description that will give you all the discount codes and links from there that you guys can use. And doing that does help support the channel a ton. I'm going to be changing things up here, so all the ad stuff isn't all at one time. So it's all going to be at the end of the video now. I'm trying to make these more efficient for you guys. I've heard the comments. I see what you guys are saying, so I'm trying to make this better for you. Please understand, though, I do still have to make some kind of money, and that's how I afford buying 4 daggers and all the ammo associated with it. So I do have to make something, so these sponsors are a massive help, but changing things up so it's not so much all at once. So I hope you guys can appreciate that, and I appreciate all your support. So let's go right into the malfunctions. I've only had 2 of them. One of them was a malfunction with the extraction, and the other one was a light primer strike. Very well could have been an ammo problem. I just like to share those with you so you guys can make your own decision. I personally think it's an ammo problem, but again, I'm gonna put it out there and let you guys know I did have 2 malfunctions. Now those 2 only happened with this gun only. This gun has remained flawless. I just haven't had quite as many rounds through this one, about 300 rounds through this one and 500 rounds through this one. This gun, when I first got it, I'll show you some video here, but it felt very clunky. It didn't feel nearly as smooth as all the other daggers I've received. Enough so that I contacted Palmetto and I was like, hey, this gun seems a little weird. When you hold down the trigger, everything just seems like it's hanging up on something, I guess is the best way to put it. It feels like something's keeping it from sliding smoothly. Mentioned it to them. They said, you know, put rounds through it, break it in, and let us know. Has not had any problems shooting. It has definitely broken in a little bit more, but it's not nearly as smooth as this one, which feels great to me. So not sure what's going on with that. They did not seem wildly concerned about it, and there's not had any problems. So if there's any problems arise from that, I will definitely update you, and I will send any information to Palmetto and see what they say. But so far, no problems, but just something I wanted to mention to you. So as you can see, there's 2 different configurations here. This one just has a longer slide with the ported slide. Now, it's not a ported barrel, it's just a ported slide. The barrel ends just like this barrel is. It's the exact same length. The slide is just longer. Now, when I first got this, I thought to myself, that is strictly aesthetic. There's no way that actually does anything. Now, after shooting both of these, this one does feel snappier. Is it so much so that I think that it makes a huge difference? And if I grabbed one or the other and didn't get to shoot them side by side and compare them, I'd really notice a ton? Probably not. But after shooting both of these and trying to really focus on it, this gun does seem to shoot a little more level and a little bit more controllable to bring that dot back onto focus. Now, again, this one does not have a dot, this one does, so that might play an effect as well. But just what I felt, this one seems to shoot a little nicer. So I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Arrowhead Tactical Pants. These are concealed carry sweatpants, shorts. It's an other apparel as well that have an inner belt that allow you to be able to conceal carry and shoot here at the range. So we're out here at the range with concealment and the Dagger that we're testing here in the video. As you can tell, we got some flooding, but absolutely love these pants for being able to be comfortable, conceal carrying in the summer, or just when I don't want to wear jeans, but still being able to have a firearm on me. Accessible if I need to. I'm able to draw and it doesn't bring my pants up or down. Everything stays exactly where it should be. So big thank you to Arrowhead Tactical for sponsoring the video, and let's run a mag through here and continue to test this gun. If you're interested in picking some up for yourself, there's a link in the description to get some for yourself. Palmetto State has done a great job on the grip texture and design on these guns. It's just light enough to be able to conceal carry easily and not get really uncomfortable, but it's not so light that it slips out of your hand. I would say it's more on the light side than the heavy side. They could maybe add a touch more texture to it, but I think they did a really good job with it, finding a middle ground. You've got an undercut, and they've added texture points on different areas here for contact where your hand and your grip all stay. The undercut is nice to get a little bit higher of a grip onto the handgun. Not a massive fan of the trigger, and there's actually been some improvements with the trigger and a couple other things that we're gonna go over in the next segment here on the improvements of the first Dagger that I have with the Daggers now. And they're really small and subtle, but they're huge improvements that I think make a massive difference. You do have a spot here to be able to put some flashlights. It's not gonna work on most like the bigger flashlights, but your smaller like TLR7 will work on this gun, which I think is very important, especially if you plan on concealed carrying this, which we're gonna answer that question at the end of this review if it's even something I would consider. Weird thing to mention with this one is it came with screws specifically for the hollow sun. And I like that because I was planning on putting a hollow sun on here. But for some reason the screws were too long. So I really don't understand why it came with screws and the screws didn't match. So I put the EPS carry on here and the screws were too long to be able to actually lock the optic on there. Need to screw those, or I need to drill those down and then be able to put them on. But I thought that was kind of weird to include screws for a specific optic, but the screws didn't actually work. So accuracy wise, I'm pretty happy with the accuracy of this. We did nothing too crazy. It was just a 5-yard accuracy test, and I did it with the iron sights. So these iron sights are not the best in the world. I definitely would probably upgrade them if I was planning on concealed carrying this and not putting an optic on there, but they're not the worst because they're not plastic, they're metal sights. So they're definitely improvement to the bottom, but there's definitely improvement above that you can go with if you wanted to. But accuracy wise, I'll show you the video. It was decent, especially because I chose this gun. It's a little snappier, a little harder to aim, obviously, because of the iron sights. You can get more accuracy with the red dot, which if I did the test with the red dot, I would foresee more accuracy than that. But for what this one did, I am content with that. I need to take a second to appreciate Palmetto State and what they're doing. If they sold all of their guns for more money, they would still sell out of them like crazy and they would make a killing. But instead, they're giving you guns at a great value and being able to put more guns into people's hands, and I can appreciate that. Have they made some crappy guns in the past that had issues? Absolutely. Have they corrected that and fixed those things and listened to the customer base? 100%, and I can appreciate that as a company. It's one thing for a company to make a mistake, but it's another thing for that company to listen to the customer base and make changes to improve that and then make it into something that's really good, and that's what they're doing. I will continue to test them thoroughly before giving you guys my full thoughts on each individual gun they're putting out, but them as a whole and what they're doing right now has been pretty awesome. So first, let's go over the update on the Dagger, and then we'll go over the important changes that they've done, and then we'll end with, would I conceal carry this and consider this a good option? So first, these two guns are still flawless. I have not had any malfunctions. I'm not putting as many rounds as I was when I first got them because I was in the testing process, but I'm still shooting them and I haven't had a single malfunction with either of these guns. They both performed very well. So a year later, still working really, really well. So now let's go over the upgrades that I have found with these guns that I think are super important and something to mention. First one was a big complaint I had in the initial review. If you guys are interested in my initial review, check it out here of the Daggers. But the optics cut came with no locking lugs. And what those locking lugs are is a little piece of metal that sticks up and goes into your optic so it can't shift side to side. These new ones now have locking lugs in it. Each one that I've had, that I've seen with a new optics cut does have locking lugs. It is an addition that I think is important, especially for a gun that you plan on using for duty use or concealed carry. The next upgrade you're gonna notice here, this bottom part was cut out, and this was used for stripping magazines. Now, in theory, it's really cool if magazine gets launched, you're able to strip one. I can't say I've ever had a magazine stuck in a gun that I've had to strip it. The con to this and the issue that people have is if you have really thick hands and you see the webbing of your hand kind of goes into that, when you go to insert a magazine, what a lot of people do is pinch their skin in there, which causes discomfort, but also might not seat that magazine properly. And then you go to extend, your magazine drops out, or it just doesn't feed properly and causes a malfunction. So what they did is they left the design, but they molded it into it to where you would still be able to get in there and strip it if you wanted to, because you have a little cutout, but it's not so much that the webbing in your skin is going to get in there and cause potentially a malfunction or just discomfort to the shooter. Now, the last upgrade I think is the most important, and I'm not sure what they did to change this, but something that you're going to notice with the trigger squeeze here is you're going to go hit a wall, and then there's going to be like a bunch of mush in there. So wall, mush, and then you finally hit your wall. I complained about the triggers when I did the full review, didn't really love them, but with the new ones, you hit the wall, there's no mush in there, and then it breaks. So it seems like they fixed the break and made it better. And that is a great improvement, because when you have a mushy trigger and you hit that wall, you know, you're like, okay, sweet, I'm gonna break it. And then there's another additional part of mush. That just allows you more time to make a mistake and kind of make that anticipation too early, which will cause you to dip your rounds. So it's just an improvement that's gonna make you shoot more accurate and more consistently. What did they do? No clue. But I noticed that when I was doing dry fire testing and trigger testing, I noticed that the break is much cleaner and crisper on these micros. But it was something I noticed that I think is definitely worth mentioning, that they cleaned up that trigger mush quite a bit. I want to touch on holster compatibility. Now, for the daggers, they are very similar to Glocks. They're not Glocks, but they're very similar in shape and size and the way they look. So holster compatibility, in theory, they should fit. I've heard a lot of people saying these fit in 43X or 48 holsters, and these ones do fit in Glock 1917 holsters. I have found that to be very similar. I don't have any 43X holsters, so I can't say yes for sure on this one, but these have fit in most of my Glock holsters that I have, depending on what light you have, what optics. It really depends on the accessories, but for the most part, I have found that these do work. If you were gonna still carry this, I would highly recommend just getting a holster dedicated to this. But if you're like, I just want to see if it works, slide it in. If it does, you do you. But that's my personal preference, would be to buy a holster specifically made for that gun. So here's the big question that everyone was mad about. My initial review, when I first made the first review, would I conceal carry this gun and use this as a duty gun for work? The answer is still no, I would not. I believe that this is a gun that is out there to meet a need and a demand. It is a demand for those of you that don't want to spend $500, $600, $700 on a handgun, but you still want something with a lot of value and a quality gun. And I think this 100% meets that need and is a great gun for that. Am I going to carry this at work every day? No, I'm not. I carry Glock 17 with me every day. I trust 100% with my life. Do I think this could do the job? Absolutely, but I think I personally would rather spend a little bit more money on a gun that has a couple more improvements and that test of time. I hope that makes sense, because I don't think people quite understood what I was getting at in the last video. My stance hasn't changed, basically. Exactly what I said in that video, I think the exact same thing. These are great guns, and I think they're gonna work really well. And if you can still carry it, that's fine. You definitely can. But for me personally, or anyone out there that can spend a little bit more money and get a gun that's a little bit better, like this is an amazing $300 gun, but there's also amazing $500 guns, and there's amazing $700 guns. I would personally rather have that amazing $700 gun. Is this gun bad? 100% no. I've had very good success with these, and they work very, very well. I carry this one out at the property all the time, mainly because like I'm on the four-wheeler or I'm doing work and cutting wood. I don't really care if it gets dented and dinged, and it shoots really well for me. So it's a gun I take on the property, and I trust it if I ever needed it. But I would rather have $700 parts than $300 parts. It's basically that simple, and I hope that makes sense to you if you're trying to decide if this is a gun you should carry or not. If all you have is $300, this is a phenomenal gun that's gonna work really well for you. Not trying to overcomplicate it, but also trying to explain a little bit more, because there was some frustration with the way I said that in the last video. So I hope that clarifies that a little bit. But other than that, the channel sponsors are Tecto Knives and Howitzer. Howitzer donates 5% proceeds to charity. And I have a Tactical Advisor shirt, which is really cool. The link in the description. And Tecto Knives makes phenomenal knives. I really like their stuff. Gonna be having a discount code here soon, I hope. That I'll be able to share with you guys soon. If I do, it's on the website, so you guys can find the link to my website. And from there, there's a lot of other things on my website that's pretty cool. But other than that, guys, I appreciate you all. And the best way to support the channel is using my website and the links, and showing the channel and the companies that support me, show them some love and some support. Other than that, I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.